So, thinking that you're not a leader as an entrepreneur is one of the worst things that you can think. Now, I could definitely understand why you wouldn't think that. I mean, not a lot of people are talking about leadership. They're talking about entrepreneurship, about helping people solve problems. But I want you to think about this. How many people can you help if you're not able to influence them? Not only get them to take action, to join your program, but then once they do, actually fulfill, take action themselves and see massive success, and then go tell all of their other friends? Well, I got to say, it's nearly impossible if you don't focus on becoming the next version of you as a leader. And when you can really understand and dive into the strategies, especially around leadership that you need to employ right now, you will show up as an entirely different entrepreneur, as an entirely different problem solver. I mean, think about that. We are problem solvers. We help people solve problems, but in order to do that, we need to influence them to take action and to keep showing up and to keep growing and learning. And one of the best ways, of course, is we can do that by leading ourselves. But today, I really want to talk about this idea of being an entrepreneur and how the focus is got to be on developing yourself as a leader. Now, when you think about some of the great leaders who are in the world, when you think about the people like Oprah Winfrey, Jeff Bezos, Henry Ford, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Ariana Huffington, all of these people, I was actually doing some research this last week into the types of things that they were able to do and develop in order to become massively successful in business. And it all comes down to leadership. Yes, being able to lead themselves and lead them others in a couple other different places. But if you're ready to dive in with us, you're ready to find out what your next step is in your leadership journey so you can become the type of entrepreneur that people want to follow, stick with us because we're about to jump in. You ready?
Yeah.
It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go.
So let's go. Welcome back. Welcome back. By the way, you might see we're in a different place right now. We are decided to take our studio, our YouTube studio downstairs so we can actually be on at the same time so I can see this beautiful woman and get some insights from her as she kind of goes. But we do want to hear from you. Do you enjoy this level of a workshop where we're actually in this kind of atmosphere where we're both here together? But really, we want to lead into leadership today, but we do want to hear back from you, okay? And here's what I mean, is some people ask, okay, Mark, so in order to become a powerful entrepreneur, I need to focus on my leadership skills. But there's so many different leadership skills. I mean, there's this, there's that, there's that. There's a million different ways of being able to lead others, being able to ask people questions, coaching people, connecting with your family, all of these different things. And so people ask well, what are the ones that are most important to me? Now, here's the thing. I'm going to help you identify what some of those activities are for you, but I also want to lead with this, we believe that you can be a massively successful entrepreneur and still connect with your family on a deep and an emotional level while still taking care of yourself and not burning yourself out. So when I think about leadership, when I think about the skills for you to develop, they have to be in alignment with your core values. Now, this is something that we're going to be going over next weekend. So we have an exclusive call that we're doing. We typically only take one-on-one clients through this. It is kind of like what we call a breakdown goals session. It's something that we do different than I've seen anybody else ever do. And this is the thing that got us from basically making $40,000 a year to making over $400,000 a year by understanding how to really reprogram our mind. And one of the first steps that we're going to take people through next week is really talking about core values. Now, today we don't have time to do that, but I really want you to think about this when you're thinking about the leadership skills for you to develop. Because yes, there's leadership skills when it comes to influencing other people, right? But there's also other skills that feel are in alignment with your core values, what you really believe to be near and dear to you. Now, for here on this channel, that is health, that is family, that is impact, and that is integrity. So those are our 4 areas. And we're hey, how can we become better leaders by diving into these specific areas? And when I think about this for us as a channel, and I don't want to just say that these have to be your core values or that these are the things that you have to learn. This is how the process worked in me to figure out where I had the most potential for return in investment when I took action in these specific areas. All right. So these are 3 areas that we focus on here. And that is like making an impact with others, leading ourselves, and then leading our family. So leading others, leading ourselves, and leading family. Now, I want to give you some ideas of each one of these areas, some of the things that we had to learn in order to elevate ourselves as entrepreneurs. And I want you to also see how each one of these areas, even in the area leading your family, will help you elevate yourself as an entrepreneur. By the way, I'm talking a lot here today. This is definitely different, but I do want to kind of share as we go these 3 areas, and maybe you'll hear a skill for you to develop. Maybe just the fact that we're going through these core values and the things that are like really near and dear to us will connect with you and make you like actually go through the core values exercise that we're going to be doing next week. By the way, it's not going to be on YouTube. We're doing it special on Zoom. I'll leave you the link inside of the description for you to be able to sign up. It's only for people who are part of this channel and for our email list and some of the clients that we have. But we do want you to really think about this through the eyes of how could this apply to you? But also, how could this apply to the people that you lead? All right. So Teresa, first off, how you doing?
Good.
All right. Okay, that's enough. That is enough. That's a little bit too much talking. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about like I think the most important area when it comes to leading. What do you think is the most important area? What is the most important area to you when it comes to leading? What?
I think it's leading ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it always starts with us. So we always talk about modeling the behavior, and I think that I think that we don't have like that that right to lead others if we don't lead ourselves. So I think it always starts with us.
Are you stealing the tagline of my book?
What? I may have read it.
Actually, Andrew read it. I should bring him down here and he can do a lesson for me. But yeah, I totally agree. Like we earn the right to lead others by effectively being able to lead ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not coming from a place of like shame or guilt or you're less than. You've got to make sure that you do the hard things first before you get everybody else to. But it's a process of like learning what's working for you and then being able to pass that on to other people. It's like also like working in the trenches. Like thinking that you need to have it all figured out before you can lead somebody else is also not the way you do it, right? It's like, hey, I'm working through this myself too. I know there's a lot of things that I'm currently teaching. People ask me all this time. They like, Mark, how do you decide what you teach? And I'm like, I'm teaching what I need to hear, what I need to learn, what I'm going through, and what like maybe I had mastered before, but like it's starting to get out of control, right?
Yeah, because we're constantly growing, right?
100%.
And then that actually gives us an advantage because we'll never run out of things to talk about if we're constantly growing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other topic. That is a beautiful topic because like a lot of people say, well, how do I know what to talk about? Or how do I know which videos to do on? Or how do I know podcasts? And I'm like, well, if you're constantly learning, you're never going to run out of details. Okay. So I want to dive down some of the skills that I have found to be most impactful in these areas, specifically starting with leading yourself. So Teresa's right. Like the hardest person to lead is yourself. But when you lead yourself, you earn the right to lead others. I was talking to somebody during our life coach certification today, and she's going through a struggle having some self-doubt and having some criticisms about herself. And one of the things that we don't realize is that when we're going through that, when we are willing to fight that fight and to get through it, it actually makes us the type of person who can help others through it. Because like Ed Milet says, we are most qualified to help the person that we used to be, right? And so while you're going through that thing, it could feel like it sucks. But as a matter of fact, when you're able to lead yourself through it, it empowers you to be able to lead other people because you're like, I've been there. I know. And there's just a different level of belief when you've been through that yourself. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about leading yourself. Leading ourselves looks like doing hard things. So one of the things we have going on right now in our group, in our book club, is the 75 Hard. So some people have decided to jump in with me. We started like in the beginning of December and everybody's like, why are you doing that? Like it's the holidays. I'm like, because we want to do hard things. When you get yourself used to doing hard things, it translates into multiple areas of your life. You will say yes to opportunities in your business that you would have never even, like they would have been present, but you never would have been open to them, right? You say yes to, asking somebody out on a date. You say yes to doing a hard workout. You say yes to, it's incredibly powerful how when you can teach yourself that hard things mean you're growing, that you're more willing to do it, it translates into multiple different areas. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's the hardest thing to do, right? It's easy to tell other people what to do, but when it comes to you, it is the hardest thing because you are actually going through whatever struggles you're going through. But like you said, it's like you earn the right to lead others when you are constantly challenging yourself. You're constantly putting yourself in uncomfortable positions to be able to come out the other side, right? And then you're like, you know what? I went through this. Like, this is how you do it, or this is how you can do it.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's
So I have a couple other skills that I want to talk about, but like I do want to ask you. So what do you tell someone like what advice do you have if you're like they're working through saying yes and doing the hard things? Like what are some of the things that maybe you tell yourself that get you to in that moment take the action versus not take the action?
um so how do I get myself
Yeah.
to do the hard things?
Mhm.
Okay. So this has always been a struggle for me because I was the type of person that didn't want to, go outside my comfort zone. Try to take the easy route. Like I didn't want to go through those hard things, right? But I think that surrounding yourself with people who tell you, no, you can do it.
Mhm.
Like you can
Mhm.
do hard things. And I constantly remind myself, like, let's say there's something in my business that I'm trying to get through. And I don't just think about, oh, well, have I gone through this before in my business? Because I've done other things that are outside of business that have been really hard that I have gone through. And I mean, I can list hundreds of
Mhm.
things, if not thousands of things that I've done that have been really hard. So I think about those times. I think about this is actually a piece of cake if I really think about it, where it's not as hard as something that I did many years ago or even, last year. So I constantly remind myself of I've been in a position where I feel like, oh, this is like a really big mountain to climb. But I think about all the other mountains that I've climbed and
Mhm.
I've overcome and what I've learned from them. So that's kind of how I push myself to do. And I know that if I constantly push myself to do hard things, like everything else becomes like easier, right?
Mhm.
So that's just like really kind of thinking about I've already been through something like this before and probably much harder, so I can get through this, again.
I like it. I like it. I like it. So basically, you're finding a story in there to help you navigate it, realize how far you've come. And instead of being focused on, like, well, I've never done this exact thing before, you focus on, well, I have done really hard things. And this is very similar in those hard things.
Yeah, and and I do that with my clients too. Sometimes when there's a struggle with they have this goal, right? And they're like, I don't know, this is a pretty big goal and I don't know if I can do it. If they're having a really hard time, I always go back to that.
Hmm.
Like, well, have you done anything else before? Because I mean, probably,
Hmm.
right? So we kind of go through, I kind of take them through that and just thinking about we always think that the current mountain that we're in is the steepest, right? But we've already gone through so many of them. So we got to think back to, what we've already gone through and what we've overcome, and that gives us some confidence, right? That,
Hmm.
oh, okay, well, I was thinking like this was really a big deal, but it really isn't in the grand scheme of things if we really think about it.
Oh, makes sense. Makes total sense. I like that. Um, so over the Christmas break, doing the 75 hard, and it was in California. It actually rained
Yeah, for like
for
5 days.
which is crazy, right? But there was like it was pretty crazy to go outside. And I remember for my second workout, I'm strapping on my backpack and everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? Like, why are you going outside? And Alyssa, my daughter, I asked her, I'm like, hey, you want to go on a walk with me? And she's like, okay. But it's crazy because when I go out there, when I'm like the only person out there on the planet, it feels like, and me and her just going around, we were walking around. I have my my rucksack on. We have our um, umbrellas on. It doesn't matter because there's water coming up from every single angle. Like for some reason, like I don't know, we don't have a good drain system or something here. But it's like we get back from that, and I'm like, really? Like I'm willing to do that? Like so many people would have been like, oh, like I don't want to do that. But the not only the belief that I have in myself once I do that hard thing and then come back, it's just like, oh, this other thing is super easy in comparison to that. So,
Mhm.
like, when it comes to like doing hard things, the reason why we're doing the 75 hard, a lot of us are doing that is because when you can do hard things physically, it prepares you to do hard things mentally.
Mhm.
And that's what developing mental toughness is about. Now, we also have a video that we did, how to develop mental toughness for your business. Definitely an incredible workshop for you to visit if you haven't visited that one. But it's really the power of understanding that when you do hard things physically, you can also turn yourself into doing hard things mentally. Okay. So that is the first piece, is doing hard things and developing mental toughness. The next one, is Teresa said, is modeling the behavior that you want to see in others. So you got some hair issues? Where's the hair? Hair?
That's so distracting. Sorry, guys.
Don't we have like hair people or something? Kurt, get on that, man. We need some hair and some blush, whatever you call that. But modeling the behavior for others. So this is another skill, believe it or not, for us to employ. One of the things that when I talk to my clients and I'm taking through them like a leadership system, they want a system to be able to know where to spend their time, where to set boundaries, how to help more people, how to not burn themselves out. There's a system we use called the 4 M's. And the first M is always modeling the behaviors. Like, what are the actions that you're asking others to take? And are you making it visible to others when you're taking them? So for example, if you have a coaching business, do you have your own coach? And are you making that visible? Like, just because you have your own coach doesn't mean everybody else knows you do. Are you talking about it? Are you breadcrumbing it? This is what I learned on my coaching session, because when you do that, you subliminally get into people's subconscious mind of like, oh, he or she is practicing what they're preaching, right? And there's just a different level of energy when you're modeling that behavior. And it's just a constant, like, trying to remind yourself, am I modeling that behavior? If I am, cool. Is it visible? Am I talking about it enough? Do people know that I'm doing this? And on the flip side, if you're not, that's okay. This just gives you an opportunity to lean into this and go, oh, I should probably get down on the ground floor. I should probably start taking these actions, and then verbalize it. And it gives you an opportunity to like really tap into, to grow into it, instead of beating yourself up about it and saying that you're not doing that. Because we all have times when we show up the way that we want to, and also a lot of times when we show up the way that we don't want to, including me. And I teach this stuff, right? So it's not just about understanding that it's good to model the behavior, but also like, where are some areas that maybe you need to model it a little bit more, and then you can tap into like how to get people to see you modeling that behavior, because that is ultimately what's going to influence them. Is that when you influence yourself, you can in turn get them to see that you're willing to do what they're willing to do.
And most of the time, we don't think people are watching us, but they are.
It's like kids,
right? Yes.
It's like kids. Like, you can say a million times what to do, but they're going to watch you through your own actions, and they're going to do the same exact thing that you did. Mm-hmm. And you can't really get upset at them. Otherwise, Andrew will call you a hypocrite. Are you a hypocrite, Dad? Yeah. Okay. The next thing is self-coaching and self-leadership. I like to think of these things like hands in hand. So if you're wanting to get good at leading yourself, you got to get good at being able to coach yourself and ask yourself really great questions to get you focused on solution-based answers instead of negativity, like head voice, punching yourself in the face over and over again based questions. These are questions like, man, why do I suck so much? Why doesn't this business work? Why isn't this growing? Why aren't people like responding to my message? Come up with a positive answer for that. Mm-hmm. There isn't. We don't realize that when we ask crappy questions, we get crappy answers. That's the way that it goes. But really getting good at being able to coach yourself through the moment, whether it's like, okay, so my son or my daughter just did that, and I could just get immediately angry and react, but how do I want to show up in this situation, right? And just taking a few seconds of going, how do I want to show up, can be a whole entire different 180 of how you show up. And then, of course, from that, you create that environment of psychological safety, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's about like you being able to coach yourself before you ask other people to coach themselves, or before you coach other people. Like Teresa said earlier, so much easier for you to coach someone else and go, oh, here's your blind spots. Oh, how about this? And how about this? But the hardest part is being able to see our own blind spots, but also, and I have to say this because ego was a big thing for me, is being willing to understand that you have blind spots and you don't know them. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't know what you don't know. If you're willing to say, I don't know what I don't know, but maybe somebody else can ask me a question or see this, that's when you've reached that level where you're like, I'm now open to getting feedback from people, not just thinking that I know it all, because I never do. Whenever I am coming up against like some type of problem, even though I've read every single book on the planet, even though I've gone through all these different certifications, like I still do have blind spots. And I ask her and I'm like, hey, what do you see? Like, what are some questions? Or I'll ask Kurt, or I'll ask Josh, or I'll ask somebody, and they'll be like, oh, how about this? And I'm like, How did I not see that? And it's because it's all of our behind the view scenes. So you have to be willing to not only coach yourself, but willing to be coached by other people and to be mentored by other people so that you can not only find the answers that are right for you, but also become aware of your blind spots and not be afraid of those, because that's your greatest opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, the last one is getting yourself to take care of yourself. That's a whole lot of yourselves, but it's all about yourself, right? Now, here's the thing. I can't tell you how many times, like even just hearing, like, I got to take care of yourself, and like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I hear it so much, but it's the first thing to go all the time. Like, it's like, oh, I'm just going to get less sleep. Oh, I'm just going to skip lunch. Oh, I'm just going to work harder. Oh, I'm just going to add more stuff to my plate. And we think that it's a noble thing, that like when we add more to us, it brings more value to the people. But think about this really. When you are constantly giving, what kind of value are you giving? When you're exhausted, when you're tired, when you're negative, when you have no energy, when you're not able to show up, when you're just checking the box, when you're not being intentional, everything else we take on makes everything else worse. And as you consistently go, it just becomes where you're going through the motions and you're not seeing any results in your business, in your personal life, in your health, in anything. And it's not because you're not doing so much, it's that you're doing too much. I remember I had this really like viral post. It was like my only viral post on Facebook early on. It was like it's not the fact that you're doing too much, it's the fact that you have to do less. And when you actually do less, that's when the floodgates of results will happen. They'll like open up, because that's the truth. When you do less, you actually do it better. And when you do it better, more people want you to do it for them, right? I've had this conversation with Kurt a lot. It's like, he is a jack of a million trades, which means that he could excel like in any one that he picks, but he's got to pick one and he's got to lean into it and develop it and become the type of person when they think that thing, they're like, that's Kurt. That's my guy. I'm going to take it to him, right? But if we're trying to be something for everyone and we're trying to give, we're not going to have any, like we say, any cup to pour from, right? So yes, it is one of those things where sometimes it can get irritating when you hear people say it and take care of yourself and all that kind of stuff. But it's also one of those things that we need to hear more often than I think even is said, because it's impacting us and getting us frustrated because probably we're not leaning into it. But if you were leaning into it and you were taking care of yourself and you were working on the right activities, you would be able to make a bigger impact, but also you'll be able to model the behavior for others. I can't tell you, like early on in the business, when we were in hustle mode, when like family was on the back burner, I was working LAPD, I was having all of these extra days at court. I didn't have any days off. I was trying to sleep during the day, and having young toddlers, I was not able to sleep during the day, especially when it was like light outside. I don't know. I can't sleep when the light is outside, and then trying to go back to work and stay safe. And then also trying to grow a business. And what I realized is like when I had all of those things, I was trying to throw more action and more energy and more focus into it, but I couldn't. And things were not growing. I was working harder and they weren't. It's when I worked less, when I focused on the things that actually moved the needle, which is when everything kind of like turned around. So this isn't one that I want to take lightly, but I also want you to know that when you are having these conversations, when you are taking things off your plate, when you are hopefully taking things off of the people that you're leading's plate and not just constantly adding, you're literally like showing them through your actions what you want them to do. So if you're burning yourself out, your kids are going to burn themselves out. If you're burning yourself out, your clients are going to burn themselves out. So every time you're modeling that behavior of taking on more and more and more and more, you're indirectly teaching them how to do it. And I got to tell you, like one of the things that's the main motivators for me is I don't want to implant things into my kids that I personally don't ever want to do again in my own life. And so I make sure that I realize that when I take care of myself, I directly and indirectly tell my kids that they should take care of themselves too. So I think I went a little bit long on that. But what do you think?
It's okay. Yeah, the thing that always stands out to me in this part is that it's so easy for us to not take care of ourselves and then justify it, because we don't like to let people down, but we're okay with letting ourselves down because I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is, but that's why it's so easy to just like put ourselves aside when things get hard or when people need us, because we're like, oh, it's okay. Letting myself down, that's fine, but I don't want to let these other people down. So
yeah, and I kind of feel like we're kind of like seeing ourselves as a martyr. Like we'll do it. We'll do it
yeah,
for
we'll
the
take the
benefits of everyone
sacrifice.
else. And it kind of like sometimes makes us feel good because we're like, we will sacrifice in order for this to have them to have success. But like, what you don't realize is there's a place in the middle where you can have both.
Mm-hmm.
You can take care of yourself and other people can have success. It's just that we convince ourselves, no, I want to be the martyr because I want people to think of me this way. Like, I'm the one who always sacrifices. I'm the one who always gives up. Like, I mean, I always used to tell you this, like, I used to wear a police badge, but I also used to wear a hardworking badge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to want to tell everybody how long I was working, how minimum sleep I was getting. And then I thought about that one day. I'm like, that is pretty dumb. Like, I'm literally telling people that I'm getting 2 hours of sleep every single day. Like, and now they're thinking that that's awesome and that they should do that too. And I'm like, no, like, that's not the solution. As a matter of fact, that's what caused me to get to burnout and want to create this channel and want to create like a coaching business. Cause I'm like, you don't have to do that. There's a way for you to excel at both of them, but it just takes a little bit of more creativity and be willing to like coach yourself and work through it, which most people aren't willing to do, which is like one of the slogans that also takes off a lot. And that's like when people say like, most people aren't willing to do, they aren't willing to like work hard and finish what they start. They're not willing to like, to take action when they think that other people are going to like, maybe give them some, I don't know, some pushback on it, right? Or maybe share their opinion, or what are other people going to think about me? And the truth is, like, most people aren't willing to do that, but we aren't most people, right? We are willing to do those things because we're modern leaders and we lead from the front. And when we lead from the front, we show other people that it's okay to be themselves. It's okay to be authentic. It's okay for them to take those actions themselves, even if there's other people who don't agree with them, because as long as you agree with them and as long as you're leaning into your core values, that's all that really matters, right? And it's just this philosophy of like, most people aren't willing to do it. And that's a story that I tell myself all the time because it gets me to show up how most people wouldn't show up, right? That's why we say here at Modern Leadership, we see things differently. Like, people see things this way. And I'm like, oh, that's where the rest of the world sees it. I want to see things this way because I don't want to go to where the rest of the world is, right? And it's an opportunity that we have when we get really good at being able to lead ourselves. So that was the first piece. That was getting good at leading yourself. So based off of that, I do want to hear from you guys. Is there one or two of those areas that you really want to focus on? You're like, and I want you to take you through this. So when you think about doing hard things, how will that benefit your business? You'll probably get in front of more people. You'll probably say yes to the right opportunities. You'll maybe start a podcast, maybe get on the YouTube channel with Mark. Like, who knows what those things are, but it will get you to reach out, have conversations, get people to buy your program because you're willing to do hard things. But what also will it benefit you when it comes to having a family? Well, when you do hard things, your kids are going to be willing to do hard things. When they have a speech in front of class, when they have something and you're telling them, hey, these are the hard things that I'm doing and I felt uncomfortable and I did them anyway, to them, it's like, oh, so just the fact that I'm feeling uncomfortable doesn't mean that I can't do this. It means that I lean into it just like mom and dad did. This is a great opportunity for us to be able to develop that, right? And then, of course, doing hard things around other people. When you do hard things, like Teresa said earlier, it makes it so much easier for everybody else to do hard things. So if you're leading a team of people and they're not doing hard things, I want to question you. Are you? Are you doing those hard things? Are you making it visible to them? I mean, I'm not saying you can control them, but that's the first step, is what are the things that you can control? Am I doing those things? And am I making it visible to them? And if they don't do it, that's on them, right? But you can control a piece of this equation. That is what you're doing, right? Developing mental toughness, modeling the behavior for others. Like, these are all things that make a huge impact in your business as an entrepreneur, but also as a parent, and definitely when it comes to your own personal life and your personal and physical and mental health, right? So all of these things are impactful, not only as an entrepreneur, but all these multiple different areas too. Now we're going to dive into part two. Trisha says, I need to take care of me better to lead better. 100%, Trisha, 100%. We all do. We all do. No shame or guilt in that. But now that you have that, like, what are the steps you're going to take moving forward? Even some of the small steps that you're going to take to make that happen, right? What are some of those steps? And also, Trisha, how can we best support you on that mission? That's why we're here. We're here not just as modern leaders, as individuals. We're a team. We're a team of modern leaders. And however we can help you and everybody else here, let us know, because we're here to do that, okay? That was leading yourself. The second one is leading others, all right? So let's talk about leading others. Now, when we're thinking about entrepreneurship, a lot of times we're thinking about leading others. I want you to start thinking about leading yourself first, but then yes, there is going to be some things for you to learn and develop when it comes to leading others, all right? And these things can be, first off, developing others as leaders, not as followers. So when we start to take people under our belt, when we start to mentor people, when we start to teach them some things, sometimes what we inadvertently do is we create more followers who are dependent on us instead of more leaders who will go out and lead. This is one of the main reasons why we wanted to start our life coach certification. We have 100 and I forget 80 something life coaches. Teresa and I, we love coaching. We can coach a lot of people, but not as many people as 158 other people that we put out there in the world who are now able to coach more people. And that wouldn't be the case if we only taught them how to follow us. If we only gave them like some ideas and then had them come back to us and stay handcuffed to us in order for them to be able to succeed. But instead, we're like, how do we empower them? How do we teach them everything we know so that they can go out and really, it's like multiplying ourselves. We multiply ourselves into other people where they still have their stories, still have their passion, but they learn some of the skills that we're able to learn. So when you are learning how to lead others, you got to ask yourself, am I teaching them to be handcuffed to me to come find the answers? Or am I empowering them to do sometimes the difficult thing to go out there and find it and create it on their own? Anything about that?
No, I was just going to say what you just said, empowering them, right? It's not necessarily multiplying yourself, because you want other people to, be themselves, but it's about empowering other people to make their own decisions and learn from us, and then, learn and then teach other people, right? Mm-hmm. In their own way.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point. Like a lot of you guys here know Josh Coates because he was originally, he still is my mentor. But when I first started out, I was just in his group training programs. And I got to the point, because he was willing to give me as like whatever he possibly could to have success, that I actually multiplied into me. Now, I'm not Josh 2.0, I'm Mark 2.0. And it was not a duplicate of Josh. I multiplied, meaning he gave me his best stuff so that I can move forward and I can use it to create make other impact in the world. I mean, having the Dad Edge men reach out to me and ask me to teach inside of their programs, like that is something that, because of me really focus on family and relationship and continuing to do whatever I can to become a better father and a husband, that is like what called out to me. But they also like connected with me on those values, right? Which are some values that Josh has, but he has a different audience per se than me. And so it's me able to like expand the audience that understands push and life and leadership coaching and performance coaching into multiple other audiences that he couldn't have done by himself, right? Mm-hmm. So that is developing others as leaders. Next one is communication skills, right? Communication skills, like how do you communicate to other humans? Do you connect with them? Do you really want to help them? Are you making it about you? Like, are you thinking, well, like, oh man, I got to do this right, and I got to convince them to take these actions? Or do you really want them to succeed, and you're just willing to get curious, put on your coaching hat, and just ask some questions to help them uncover some pieces? Next one is helping other people get results. So some people and they don't think about this way, but I want you to like really bring some things to your awareness. Some people work really hard to get clients and customers into their program. And then when they get in there, you barely see them. Like you barely see the coach or the person, the leader in there trying to help these people who are now their clients get incredible results. They now go on to like, okay, who's the next person that I need to get into my program? One of the pieces of leadership is not just like leading people to get in your program. It's once they're in there, getting them incredible results. And once you get them incredible results, they become your ambassadors. They start talking about you, and you don't have to talk about you as much. And so when you think about leadership, I don't want you to think about like just leading people to join your program. I want you to think about like, how do I lead them from this beginning stage to literally multiplying into me? Right? And being able to do that, you spend time with the people that are like actually working, spend time with the people who are actually taking action, right? And when you do that, you not only do you develop really great leadership skills, but you help them achieve results. And when you get results, those testimonials will like pay dividends. I don't know why, but I see this happening where people get people into their program and then they just jump onto, okay, who's the next person? Instead of saying, how can I pour so much into them that they have incredible results that they actually go out and talk to people and get more people to join in my program. And there's this middle beautiful ground in there somewhere, but don't forget the part of once somebody joins you to do what you can, meaning you're not going to be able to get them to have success or not have success. It's up to them, but do your part to be able to lead them to their version of success. Anything else? Okay. Next one is helping people solve problems. Can you kind of see there's a lot of things? Helping people solve problems, bringing awareness to what it is that they're struggling with, getting them inspired and bought in to change their lives instead of you having to be the person there to change their lives, right? And helping solve conflicts. There's multiple different skills that you can really think about when it comes to like leading others. I wanted to give you an idea of some of them. We're not going to go through all of them, but these are all different skills. Like maybe you have a skill that you're like, you know what? I want to help people solve more problems. So I want to get into life and performance coaching. I want to learn maybe some of the aspects of what Mark and Teresa are talking about here. Like maybe you want to subscribe to Modern Leadership and keep like listening and watching and learning some of these different skills that we're kind of doing, right? But of course, that is something that will help you when it comes to your business, but it also will help you when it comes to like the connection with your kids and your significant other, as well as like solving problems in your personal life, in your own life, right? So these are all things that will make you better in multiple different areas. But there's probably a skill or two that you're like, this is the skill that I need to learn. Now, we talk about this a lot on the channel, and that is like personal growth, right? And I think personal growth, like people think personal growth is related to what are all of my friends reading in terms of books? What are some books that people have told me have been really good? And you're missing out on something. You're missing out on the skill that you need to develop. So for me, I got this brand new book. It's called Primal Branding. It's over there. I have a YouTube coach, and the YouTube coach was like, hey, Mark, you need to share a little bit more about your story. You need to work on your thumbnails a little bit. You need to focus on what's called primal branding and share some of the things that you believe that maybe not everybody believes, but your core audience will. And I literally have a book that now I'm reading every single day, along with the Atomic Habits book that we have in our book club. But I'm reading that book because I know that that's a skill that I need to develop. And what helps me so much is knowing that I'm developing that skill because I'm reading the book and I'm going to implement it. And when I do that, I'm like, I am on the path of success. Not just reading any random book, not just listening to any random podcast, or not just, getting on calls with like people just discussing what we're currently doing. I'm like, what is the skill that I need to develop, and how can I lean in and develop that, right?
What would you tell someone who doesn't know what skill they need to develop? Because the first thing is awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to know what it is that they need to work on. So how could you help someone do that if someone comes to you?
Oh, great question. So next week, we're actually going to be diving into this inside of our goal setting workshop. So what you have to do is you have to first realize what you want to achieve. What is your goal? If I could like hand you a goal right now and it was easy, it wasn't hard, you didn't have to struggle for it, what goal would you want to be able to achieve? And then based off of that, think about, or what are some of the things that you have to do in order to be able to achieve that goal? And what are some of the skills, 2 to 3 skills that you would need to develop in this year to become the type of person that would have that goal already? And when you can reverse engineer it, it opens up the door of like, these are the skills that I need to do. I mean, that's a really great question. And it's really personal, which is why I wanted to give you some ideas today. But you definitely need to make the live webinar or the live Zoom that we're going to be doing next weekend, because we have to figure out what you want first. Don't just throw skills at things. No, you have to identify, what do I really want to create? And what are the 2 to 3 skills that I can learn that will make me the type of person that basically becomes the type of person who can have that goal. For example, you want to lose weight, right? How many people have said, I just want to lose 50 pounds, right? And you lose 50 pounds, you get there, and then you go back. And then you lose it, and then you go back. And then you're back and forth, because you haven't learned the skills you need to learn to become the type of person that just weighs 50 pounds less. Like for me, this is what was my up and down journey, like losing 20, gaining 20, losing 20, gaining 20. But then I tapped into losing 100 and never having to lose it again. Right. And I did that because I became an entirely different person. I was like, how do I grow as a person? What skills do I need to develop? Me, it was mental toughness, learning how to coach myself. Those were the 2 ones. When I learned to develop those, I just became the type of person that lost 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. I become the type of person that, it's time to do my second workout after this. I'm just going to go outside. Doesn't matter if it's raining. Doesn't matter if it's cold. Doesn't matter what time it is. It's just going to happen. Right. And that's not something that it just naturally ingrained in me. I struggled with that for a long time, but I realized that I needed to become someone different in the process. There's this process called be, do, have. All right. Have is what you want to create. What most people say is like, if I want to have 100-pound weight loss, then I have to do this workout. And that's true to a degree, but you need to become something first. You need to change it on an identity level. And when you identify as the type of person who works out, you identify as the type of person who eats healthy, you identify as the person who drinks more water, you just do it automatically. That's what makes you do. And then when you do that, then you get to have it. But it's not like a lottery thing where you win the lottery and before you know it, all the money's gone. You've literally become the type of person who can now run $1 million business because you learn the skills that it took to get there. We all want it fast, right? We're like, how do I just get there to the have? And I like to make this analogy. I'm like, okay, if Josh handed you his $1 million coaching business, how long would you have $1 million business? And the answer is probably for a couple days. Because you would have no idea what to do. You don't have the skills. You aren't the type of person who owns $1 million business right now. So don't rush through this part. You've got to learn to develop the skills so that when you get there, you can have them and you can keep them, right? Mm-hmm. So when you think about this process, it's all about becoming someone, but also like beginning with the end in mind, thinking about what you truly want to be able to create, right? That's an entirely different training, which is why we're doing that workshop. Great question.
Okay.
Okay, the third and final area is leading our families. This is something that is near and dear to us because, like I said before, like we believe that it's not just legacy is not just you making a whole ton of money. I want you to make a whole ton of money, but I also want you to be able to spend incredible moments with your family. I want you to do what Aaron Walker says, or not do what Aaron Walker says, which is come home with a pocket full of money to a home full of strangers. I want you to, like, at the same time, create incredible connections with your family. And how you do that is you focus on being able to lead your family. Now, when I say lead your family, what kind of comes up for you? Are we talking about like telling them what to do? Are we talking about like, forcing them to do things, right? I mean, that's one way of leadership. I don't know about you guys. I don't think that works so much anymore. But leadership, when it comes to leading your family, has a few different skills that I have leaned into to learn to develop. This is why I spent so many years with the Dad Edge Alliance, because I wanted to be able to develop these skills. One of them is asking questions to create connection. So asking questions to create connection. I know that you are really good at this now too. I hear you at the table kind of like doing this. What impact have you seen in our family from like asking really great questions?
Well, because it becomes, we connect with them on a deeper level, right? Because we can tell them, they come home from school, we can ask them, well, how was school? Right. And most of the time they'll be like, I don't know. That's the answer that we always get. I don't know. But when we ask very specific questions that require more than just I don't know or yes or no, then that's when that's when things really happen. Like that's when the connection really takes place, because we kind of take them out of like that element of just like this, mundane thing.
Yeah.
It's, they have to kind of like think about it. And I really love, and we've had like this little thing, a box of questions on our dinner table. And I think Mark got another box because we kind of like went through all those questions. But it's really nice to actually get to know our kids with these questions, like, which is silly, right? Because how could you say, get to know your kids? Like you should know your kids, but we don't, because sometimes we don't know what questions to ask. I mean, even like the simplest questions, right? Like, what's your favorite color? Or what's your favorite type? Or what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? Those are like kind of like the simple questions, but there's deeper questions, but it gets everyone excited and they actually look forward to some of those questions. But even with like Mark and I will do monthly date days with the kids where one of us will take each of the kids. So we have some kind of like one-on-one with the kids and we'll swap every month. And, we take this skill now with us when we have those moments that we can ask those questions, like just deeper questions of like, what's happening in their lives, right? So it gives us the ability to really connect with them, but it also gives us the ability to connect with each other as a couple as well. We'll do that as a couple. But I think that asking questions is about curiosity, but it also just gets you to kind of realize that sometimes we're stuck in our head and we don't stop to really think and kind of make those meaningful memories, really.
And it doesn't take that long, right?
It doesn't.
I mean,
no.
I know I have on my phone like a list of questions that I used to go back to. Now it's kind of like ingrained in me. But you're right. It takes the questions of like, how was your day, which is fine and good and fine. Larry Hagner talks about this, like going through the drift, right? So like when people say, how you doing? What do you always respond? Like you generally don't say, oh man, yesterday I had this and this happened and this happened. Yeah. You're probably the person who's like, oh, good, great, fine. Like it's just a normal reaction. But when you ask a question that requires a little bit more of conversation, like you'd be amazed at like what comes out of it. Teresa was talking about like asking our kids this. So whenever I go on a walk, with a different family member every day. So like Mondays and Thursdays are Alyssa, Tuesdays and Fridays are Andrew, Wednesdays and Saturdays are Teresa, and Sunday I go on a walk with myself. And I just go and I usually don't ask myself questions. That's the time I get for complete downtime. But like if I go out with Alyssa, I'm asking her questions about what she is excited about, not what I'm excited about. So there's different ways to ask questions, but when you ask questions, you don't want to just like ask them questions about like what's something you want to talk about. You want to find out what they want to talk about. So I'll go on a walk with her and I'll be like, hey, which anime are you watching? She's like, I'm watching this anime. I'm like, tell me about it. Like, what it is? What is it? And she's like, oh, it's really complicated. I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. Right. And she's like, this and this and this. 45 minutes later, we come back around home and I'm like, hey, thank you for going on a walk. She was like, oh, that was a great conversation. I'm like, I didn't really say anything, but it's like, now I also understand. And so when I'm in the house, like I sort of like, I can connect with her on a different level because I share some of those things. I'm like, oh, is this like when you were talking about this and this and this? And she's like, oh yeah. And then Andrew's like, what are you talking about? And then Teresa's like, what are you trying to like talk Gen Z or something? And it's like, it's because I've gotten interested in what she is interested in, not what I want to talk about and ask her questions about that. So there is some nuances here, but this is a skill that not only helps you here, but it also helps you when it comes to helping clients. It also helps you in the sales process. Like people like, I don't know why. So people reach out to me and they ask me to join their sales team because they want somebody to run their sales team, to lead their sales team. And I don't consider myself good at sales. I just consider myself good at asking questions, right? So like when I find out, like, for example, if I start a conversation, I'm like, hey, what motivated you to get on the call with me today? Like, think about the response that you would give if that was the case. If I'm getting on and I'm learning a little bit about you and wanting to see like what is like important and meaningful to you, what things you're struggling with, what you want to be able to create. If I start with like, what motivated you to get on the call? You're going to lead with, this is the reason why I'm getting on this call. And this is why I have this problem, right? And it opens you up to being like getting some coaching to see if I can help you fix that problem, right? And it's all about like questions. So I really don't think of myself as a salesman. I think of myself as a coach and a questions person. And then at the end, usually somebody will say yes, because if I can help them, I'm going to tell you about it. And if I can't help you, I'm going to direct you to someone else who can. That's just like a value that I have, that I know that if I can't help you, I know somebody who can, and I'll find somebody for you. But at the same time, I'm not selling. I'm just asking questions. So asking questions is one of those things where if I had to pick one that was my favorite skill, it's that one, because it helps me ask myself great questions, not terrible ones like we were talking about in there earlier. Helps me ask Teresa better questions, helps me ask Kurt better questions, the team better questions. And by doing that, we get better answers, right? So if you don't like your answers, you really need to check on your questions, right?
And it just helps you become a better communicator too, because now you're asking questions and letting the other person talk, and you're more interested. Like, I don't know. Here I go again with the, I'm trying, I come up with this, like in my head, I come up with like the saying and then I forget when I'm about to say it. But anyway, like you're more interested than interesting. There you go.
Yeah.
So when you get good at asking questions, then you have better conversations and you become a better communicator, even though you're not the one talking as much. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, you brought something up really, really important. And that is like, it also like reduces the stress that you have. Thinking that you need to have the answers if you're telling people what to do. I don't need to tell people what to do. As a matter of fact, like I work with like a client who's like a optometrist who has $1 million business. I don't know anything about optometry and how to run an optometry business, but I know how to coach him and I know how to get like him unstuck so that he can go out and crush his optometry practice and open up more. And it's because I don't have to go in there knowing things. I just have to go in there and ask really great questions and understand how the mind works. And by exploring that, he comes to his own conclusions. And there's sometimes that I do give him some advice and stuff, but in reality, it's him coming to it and then going out and taking action. And that wouldn't happen if I had to think that I had to know all the answers, right? So also just asking questions helps alleviate the feeling of like, I need to have all the answers, because the truth is you don't. In order to lead people, you don't have to have the answers. You're not physically ever going to have all the answers. It's just something that's going to be the case. Leading families also. One of the skills is not rushing to conclusions. So one of the things that we can do with families, and we can do this with everybody, believe it or not, is we set them up in terms of like, are they going to bring us what they're struggling with in the truth, or are they going to start lying to us and not telling us the things that we need to know? So when we have a conversation, like let's say I'm having a conversation with, I don't know, Andrew, and he brings something to my case or brings something to my awareness and saying, Dad, this is what happened to me. Like I got in trouble for this or whatever. If I overreact and I get frustrated, I'm like, why did you do that? Why did you get that on the test? Why did you do that? And I start just like, going through the dad, like as if I'm interviewing him, Mirandizing him as a suspect, right? He's not going to bring something like that to me the next time it happens. And so instead of me focusing on, oh man, like what's wrong with that? Like I think about like different ways that I can respond instead of react, and make it a teachable moment for him, and know that it's not the end of the world, but that I'm super proud of him for coming and bringing it to me, because I can't help him if he doesn't. And I mean, it's this thing of like, when something happens with your family or with a significant other, like, do you want them to think like, oh my God, this just happened, my dad can never find out? Or do you want them to think, this just happened, first person I need to call is my dad because he's going to be able to help me through this? And you get to decide that based off of how you react in certain situations to your family. It also happens to your clients. If you're overreacting, they're not going to tell you what's going on. If you're pointing fingers at them, they're also not going to bring that to your attention before. If you're leading people in your career, in your full-time job, it's the same exact thing. So you got to be able to take this or create safety amongst people that are there. And you do that by not rushing and jumping to conclusions. The last one that we're going to talk about is there's this great video on YouTube. It's called It's Not About the Nail. Remember that one?
Yeah.
It's a great video on YouTube. And what it is this lady, she's sitting on the couch and she's got a nail in her forehead. And her husband is there or whatever. And she's like, I just got these headaches, right? And he's like, yeah, because you have a nail. Because to the other person, sometimes they think they know the answers and they see it's very obvious. But she's like, no, like, it's not about the nail. Listen, I don't know why, but my jackets keep getting snagged. And it's super funny and hilarious. But at the same time, it's also a lot of times what we think of when we're going through situations, especially with family. We want to solve their problems. And we think that giving them the 3 steps that it takes in order to be able to, combat the bully at school or do this or to do that is the best way, when all they really wanted is somebody to listen. And so really understanding that you giving the 3 steps, you going into fixing mode is not the best solution for majority of them. And instead just asking, like, is it okay if I offer a little bit of dad advice, right? Is it okay if I were to do that? Or do you want me to listen? Either way, I'm totally fine. And a lot of times Teresa or the kids, they're going to be like, listen, my son Andrew is like, no, I want you to give me the 3 steps. And so I'll give it to him, right? But it's like not just me jumping to conclusions. Instead, I'm just finding a way of like seeing what the best use of my time and my energy is for them so that I don't get them to feel like they have to come to me to hear all the answers and they can't figure it out on their own. This is another one of those things where you're developing other leaders and not developing followers. So I know we went over a lot today. Talked about leading yourself. We talked about leading others. We talked about leading your family. And these are the things that we literally designed this channel for. So if you're here, if you're a part of this community, if you're subscribed, if you're watching our videos, you are already going to be learning and developing these skills. These are things that we bring to every single one of our videos, every single one of our live streams, every single one of our workshops, our books that we're reading inside of our book club. This is all around being able to lead yourself, being able to lead others, and being able to lead your family, which is why this is such, for me, a very powerful movement, because I want people to see that when you're in this environment, there's going to be things for you to learn. There's going to be ways for you to develop it, but you're not in this alone. You've got a team. You've got somebody there to support you. And I mean, we love that you give us the opportunity of doing this, of speaking this into your life. We appreciate you more than you know, but we do want to make sure that you also check in with your core values and what is nearest and dearest to you. And if it's in alignment with what we talked about here today, like, we're here to help you throughout that journey. Anything?
No.
Okay.
Good.
All right, guys. Now, you heard us talk a little bit about this workshop that we're doing next week. So on the 30th, we don't have a live stream here on our YouTube. We're going to be doing a very specific Zoom workshop for people who are looking to create massive success in their business in 2024, while also creating really deep connections with their family at home, as well as their health, and being able to do all of those things on autopilot. Meaning being able to program them into your subconscious mind. You don't even have to think about it, that you get up, that you take the action, and you're getting the results just as default of just continuing to live. All right. We're going to take you through that process. It's going to be a little bit more than an hour, probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. If you're somebody who's interested in doing that, you want to become a part of the community, or you're already a part of the community, check the information inside of the show notes here. If you're inside of our private app, go to the event section. You'll be able to sign up. You need to register in order to be there. And we're just super pumped to actually do that workshop and that call with you, because it is truly going to be a game changer. Guys, thank you so much for being here, for making it to the end, for being the leader that the world needs now more than ever. We need leaders like you who are not only modeling the behavior of impacting people in their lives, not only modeling the behavior of connecting with their family in a deep level, but modeling the behavior of not going into the hustle culture and working your face off, thinking that that's what success looks like. Success looks like you getting full control of your physical and mental health, you really connecting with your family, and you making the impact that you want in your business. And if you're ready to do that, we'd love to have you here. But regardless, keep crushing it. And we just appreciate you so much. Have an incredible weekend. Have an incredible Christmas, an incredible holiday. And we'll see you guys on next week's workshop. All right, everybody. Bye.
Bye.